This meeting to order. So tonight, excuse me, Section 2 will be approval of the agenda. Section 3 will be recognitions. 3.1, we have recognition of Kelly Sanders on the occasion of her retirement. 3.2, we have recognition of Jay Sanders on the occasion of his retirement. And 3.3, recognition of Step 1 Automotive Group, recipient of the Florida Department of Education Commissioner's Business Recognition Award in Okaloosa County, presented by the superintendent. And then Section 4, 4.1 will be appointment of Assistant Principal 2, 10-month at Walker Elementary School, presented by the superintendent. Section 5, public comment, agenda items only, that's the blue card version. And of course, today we don't have any idea what those might be. Section 6, 6.1, updates to the Okaloosa County School Health Services Manual for 2023-2024, presented by Terry Schroeder.
And Madam Chair, Ms. Schroeder is prepared to come forward.
I see her coming.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I bring with me today our friend and colleague, Bobby Davis. I love
Good morning.
highlighting the work that her team does. And so as part of this, I'm going to just share with you guys our annual data for Aviana Services in the school district to start with. And it's always so impressive to me that the number of encounters and services that her staff does for our students in the school district. So a couple of things I want to draw your attention to. On this document, Bobby puts it together for us annually for us to be able to reflect. The third row down, if you will notice under total meds administered, 56,136 medications were given last school year by her staff. Even more impressive for me is if you'll look all the way down where it says total professional visits and students, 201,729 interactions with her staff and our kids. Take note, though, if you go down where it says return to class, of those 201,729 students, 163,000 went back to class. That's a big deal. They're not missing instruction time because we have folks there that can look after them, to evaluate them, and send them back to class. So that, to me, is where the rubber meets the road for us. So kids aren't losing instruction, and they're getting seen, cared for, and evaluated in our clinics. So that's the highlights of the data, but you can see it's all broken down into different services, different skills that are having to be performed, and that kind of thing. So I leave that with you to be able to take a look at and peruse at your leisure. The second piece is our mental health manual. We update that annually. You should have a redlined copy as well as a clean copy. You'll notice there wasn't a whole lot of changes to it. The main changes that we made reflect some policy changes that happened after the manual was approved last year or reviewed by you last year. So we updated those pieces. We changed some of the verbiage based on focus coming in, removing some of the hard copies of the work that our staff is documenting. So basically that is a reflection of the changes. The content itself, the procedures themselves didn't really change at all. So if you have any questions, we're happy to answer those for you.
I have a question for Ms. Davis, real quick. How are we looking as far as staffing issues this past? Like, I know it was tough the last couple of years. How are we looking this year?
It has been tough the last couple of years. I lost only 4 from last year to this upcoming school year, and that was not due to anything other than military or moving or other than that, but all positions I'm happy to report are full. And really excited about the upcoming school year and what's going on.
Thank you.
I don't know that we've ever started a school year full
No,
staff.
and I am so excited. This will be the best. Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Everybody could do
I'm
that.
surprised Mr. Chambers just didn't just like yank me here. So.
No, and I will say to your question and to your point, Ms. Davis and her group, they do a great job. When you go back last year or the previous years when there were vacancies in clinics, that they step up right away to make sure that those vacancies are filled, even if leadership is the one going and filling some of those positions. So I just very much appreciate what you all do in taking care of our students
Well,
and
thank you.
staff.
Thank you. And we appreciate it. We appreciate the support that we have from the district. I mean, we couldn't do it without y'all, and we're so excited to be a part of it and be a part of the team here.
I want to thank you and your staff. You made a comment about the students that go to the clinic and then are seen and then move on. So often those students just need to be seen.
Right.
And you have employees there that obviously that these students need to feel like that they're being heard or watched, or that they know that someone is there. And again, they just sometimes need to be seen. So thank you and your staff for having
you.
that commitment and relationship with our students.
Ms. Davis, when I look at this as a non-medical person, the whole concept of distributing 51,000 plus medications just about makes me go into a panic attack.
She has medication for you if you need it.
Oh, yes, yes.
I can
need it,
tell
so
you.
good.
But it's under lock and key, mind
Yes,
you.
it is under
Yeah,
lock and
well,
key.
that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
So, just briefly, how have protocols changed with that amount? Just in other words, how do your health people manage all that and make sure that, I mean, it seems like everything goes very well.
The most important thing that I tell my staff when I'm training them with medications is to make sure that when a student comes in for their medicines, you start with that student and you finish with that student. If an emergency comes in, the student, if we have to put them to the side for a couple minutes, put their medications up, try to prevent any medication errors. That student is our priority at that time when we're dispensing their medication to them. So we just start with one, end with one, and then we move on to the next. And I always encourage it, don't become overwhelmed with it. You may have 15 kids sitting there staring at you. It's
Mhm.
okay. Just take one at a time, and we'll get them back to class as soon as we possibly can. So they just have to have patience, and then they learn, and we, take it one step at a time.
Well, thank you for consistently great service and that's very impressive, and we certainly appreciate
Well,
it.
thank you.
I think the care and concern and professionalism that you and your staff exhibit really make this partnership unique, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
Anybody
I
else
have somebody
question?
great to work with.
And
so
I'll
I
just
can't
shout it.
complain.
While Miss Davis is always, when she ever gets up there, I always like to shout out how much we've always loved Miss Davis. She was by far our favorite school nurse when our kids were in school, so we appreciate that. But looking at the numbers, it's kind of interesting. Looks like about a third of our student population takes medications. I'm just doing the math as quick as I can in my head, but that's huge. That's a lot. Yeah.
And you'll notice too, those numbers are broken down with prescription and non-prescription.
Yeah.
Right. So there is a significant difference. in
Yeah,
them.
but it's still a lot. But thank y'all both.
Anybody else? Last chance. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
again.
Thank you so much.
Okay, that brings us to section 7. 7.1 tonight will be approval of the consent agenda. 7.2, approval of the minutes of the student disciplinary hearing of June 26, minutes of the budget workshop meeting of June 26, minutes of the workshop meeting of June 26, and minutes of the regular meeting of June 26, 2023. 7.3, authorization to advertise the proposed preliminary and tentative budget and millage rate for fiscal year 2023-2024, presented by Julie Perry. 7.4, invoices to be approved for payment, presented by Julie Perry. 7.5, school donations, presented by Julie Perry. 7.6, renewal of ITB 21-0053-MR Park and Playground Equipment, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.7, renewal of tag-on bid RFP 17-04 multifunction copiers, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.8, renewal of tag-on bid annual purchase agreement for indefinite quantity environmental contracting services, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.9, tag-on bid purchase over $50,000, train, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.10, exempted purchase over $50,000, remind, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.11, exempted purchase over $50,000, Curriculum Associates, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.12, exempted purchase over $50,000, Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.13, service agreement number 24-24, Jamie Fields, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.14, service agreement number 24-25, Synced Up Designs, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.15, service agreement number 24-26, Synced Up Designs, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.16, self-help project to restore restrooms in the concession stand area at Destin Middle School, presented by Bill Smith. 7.17, donate one 2000 International Thomas 65-passenger bus to Okaloosa Academy, presented by Jay McGinnis.
Madam Chair, if I can comment on that, I would just like to thank Mr. Chambers. I know this is something that I brought up not too long ago as I was coming from Crestview to a meeting here, and I was parked next to a Okaloosa Academy bus and just looking at how old their bus was, and I just made a comment that, you know, in the past, we've had school districts that were nice enough to give us buses. Can we look at maybe giving them one of our surplus buses that would at least look a lot better than what they were in? Because they were in a 97 or 96 model, so, and that just tells you that, you know, that's an old bus. But I appreciate you looking into that and getting this done.
Absolutely.
And that was a great idea, and aren't we blessed now, thanks to the half-cent sales tax, that we have the ability to do that.
Yes, ma'am.
7.18, school food services updated a la carte pricing for elementary and secondary schools for the 2023-2024 school year, presented by Steve Anderson. 7.19, cooperative agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County, Florida, and the Children's Home Society to provide in-school mental health services to students with parent consent, presented by Terry Schroeder. 7.20, cooperative agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County, Florida, and the Emerald Coast Children's Advocacy Center, Incorporated, to provide MBF child safety matters in all K-5 schools, presented by Terry Schroeder. 7.21, cooperative agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County, Florida, and CDAC Behavioral Healthcare, Incorporated, to provide in-school mental health services to students with parent consent.
I'd like to make a comment just in general that I feel really proud of what our district is doing in the area of mental health. I don't see how anybody could say that we have not gone, you know, above and beyond and looked at every resource we can. You know, we don't need to compare, but we have to be beyond what other districts are doing. And only saying that in the sense that I hope the public can see that how quickly and how great we have responded to, and I think it goes back to one of the conversations we had with students who actually were the first ones to say, we're not doing so well with this. And we went, oh, wait, you know, we were worried about the other and getting sick with COVID, but we jumped right on that. And I appreciate you and your staff getting on that, and then the board looking at things that we voted in. And I really am very proud of Okaloosa Schools and what we've done in that area.
And I appreciate you saying that. And you look back, our school district as well as the other 66, you know, a number of years ago, 0 mental health providers. Now you look at in Okaloosa County between our mental health counselors, our CDAC providers, and our social workers, well over 30 in our school district. Our high schools have about 1.5 mental health providers. Our middle schools have a mental health provider. And then, of course, at the elementary level, we have support as well, where some of them share a school, but over 30 mental health providers. And I do thank Ms. Lamb and her group, Ms. Schroeder and her group, for really putting a lot of thought into how we get the most support at our schools. And as you know, these individuals are busy every day working with students, working with families, and working with our outside resources. So I just appreciate that.
Well, in the past, I know as a teacher, if you had a student who needed you basically just referred them out to professional services in the community. But so much of this is in the school, right there. It saves the parent money, or sometimes if they can't afford those services, we're offering that. And I think it's just wonderful that we're doing that.
And it
Appreciate
can
that.
It can be instant. I mean, we
Yeah,
can have somebody
yeah,
right
yeah. You
then.
don't have to go and have an
right.
appointment, yeah.
And thank you, Mr. Chambers, and your team, that this is an ongoing initiative. It's not something that was just put in place last year, the year before, and then dropped. It is an ongoing, growing
Yep.
commitment to help our students and employees.
Absolutely, and to the board's credit, you guys allowed us to have even more mental health providers for this upcoming school year, so you've already voted on that, so we appreciate your support in that effort.
So that brings us to 7.22, Memorandum of Understanding between the School Board of Okaloosa County, Florida, and North Florida Medical Centers Incorporated to provide preventive dental services to students with parent consent, presented by Terry Schroeder.
Madam Chair, can I comment on?
Of course.
Again, thank you, Ms. Schroeder, for this. If people could go to some of the schools and see where these buses go, I mean, it's a really cool program, and this is something that, of course, is no cost to the parents or to the students. And I know I was at Wright Elementary not too long ago, and they had the bus there, and actually they were actually in the lunchroom, but they were, had kids lined up, where they could be checked out and everything. And I know Riverside, they had the buses there, 2 buses at Riverside. So it's a great program, and I'm glad that we have this agreement to help these students who might not be able to get preventive dental care elsewhere. So.
Anyone else? 7.23, Cooperative Agreement between Florida Diagnostic Learning Resource System, Fiddlers, FDOE Discretionary Project, and Escambia, Santa Rosa, and Okaloosa counties, submitted by Amy Bowles. 7.24, permission to apply for the 2023-2024 IDEA Part B Entitlement K-12 and IDEA Part B Entitlement Pre-K grants, presented by Kathy Ard. 7.25, Title IX, Part A, Florida Department of Education project application for 2023-2024 school year 3, presented by Dr. Cheryl Seals. 7.26, request for course code adoption for the 2023-2024 school year, presented by Denise Berry.
I'm excited. This is about Baker, and I think this is a great program with the criminal justice. I can't wait to see what all happens,
Yeah.
and that's exciting.
Miss Berry, I see you're back there. What has been the response so far for these class? I mean, do we have enough? Obviously, we have enough to have the class, but what prompted for Baker to get this? Because I know Crestview has had the program for a while. So.
Right. I think based on the enrollment of previous schools and then interest of both the teachers and the students at Baker to get this course adopted.
Okay. Which is, I mean, I
Oh, it's
agree. I
phenomenal.
agree with Ms. Evanchek. This is something more
Mhm.
for those students at Baker to
Mhm.
have.
Definitely.
Yeah. So.
Oh, and we also know that our law enforcement is similar to us, needing people in there. I will have a question while you're up here about who teaches these courses. Is it someone who's in law enforcement that we work with to come in, or is it typical or traditional teachers who are learning?
It depends on the school and finding who's certified in order to be able to teach that specific course.
So do you know what's going on at Baker exactly?
I do not, I
Okay.
would have to ask the.
In most times, it's usually a retired or a transferred law enforcement officer
Yeah, I
that
was
ends up
gonna
coming
say.
into this position. Crestview, for
Crestview,
example,
that's it.
it was a law enforcement person, and I believe at Baker, it's going to be the same thing, a person who is retired from the sheriff's office who will now be
That's
teaching
perfect.
that
You got
course.
that experience and one who's really that's done that. So that's great. So thank you for getting this together.
Thank you, Ms. Berry.
All right.
And Madam Chair, if you don't mind, I just say this again. 26 items today, and as you know, last month, more items during the consent agenda. July, the next board meeting, there'll be more. I say all that to say that sometimes folks might believe that the summer is a
No.
quiet time, not as much
It is
going
the
on.
Busiest time.
But district
Busiest.
staff, as well as schools, but district staff puts a lot of time and effort into all the changes at the state level, all the new grants that have to be re-upped. So there's so much that goes on. So I just very much thank the staff for all that they do during the summer to have the school year ready to go.
Absolutely.
And all the laws that get ready to
Notwithstanding,
be signed,
Yeah.
or that
Yes.
have been signed.
yeah, notwithstanding the fact that scores come in and then we have to do things relevant to those scores
That's coming.
during the summer. So nice segue to maybe what might be coming up later.
And I'll tell you, when the scores come in, I usually stay very calm, and I just got to calm Miss Lightbourne down. So it's a team effort.
Yeah, we've heard about her.
So that does bring us to Section 8, Superintendent's Human Resources Recommendations. 8.1, Information Only, Employees on Administrative Leave, presented by Lee Hale. 8.2, Information Only, Deferred Retirement Option Program, DROP, presented by Lee Hale. 8.3, Employment Separations, presented by Lee Hale. 8.4, Personnel Recommendations, presented by Lee Hale. 8.5, Employee Transfers, presented by Lee Hale. 8.6, Employee Suspension, presented by Lee Hale. 8.7, Reinstatement, Reimbursement of Sick Leave due to line of duty illness, injury, or medical exam, presented by Lee Hale. And 8.8, Leave Without Pay, presented by Lee Hale. Then tonight, Section 9, we have nothing moved to the discussion agenda. Section 10, Construction Program Owners Representatives Business, and I understand that, Mr. Bryant, you wanted to give your report today.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm going to be brief just because a lot of the things that I mentioned the last go-around, they're still in process, or still in progress. Nothing really has changed. We're still, Dr. Smith, I know you're back there, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I still think we're still waiting on materials for our classroom additions that are still making us having to move those opening dates a little later than we thought. But other than that, everything else is rolling right along. I know today, as soon as I'm done here, I'm going to run over to Longwood to go check out the school construction over there, and then up to Laurel Hill this afternoon. So I encourage y'all to all go visit any of the schools that have projects going on. A lot of great things that are happening, and I did notice that the other day I drove by the bus barn at the north end, and they just got a new asphalt down there and kind of restriped it all to where they could have their training course. They could actually see the lines now and all. So that's was something that kind of happened there that I didn't even realize was going on at that time until I drove by there and saw that. So that was great. And I understand that the south end is also getting some much needed overhaul down there too. And if you go next door, it's starting.
Yes.
The renovation
All the
for
plastic hanging.
the complex is well underway, and so as soon as you're done here, board members, if you want to just walk over there and take a peek to see what's going on. And I know within hopefully next year at this time we'll be looking at some new facilities for us, or updated facilities. But other than that, nothing else. But you do have the sheet here. It's 5 pages long, so.
Mhm.
Are we still
Always
confident that
exciting.
Longwood's good to go for start of school?
Yes, and Bill was back there giving the okay. I talked to Miss Tucker last week, and they were doing the abatement. That's why I didn't go last week. But Joel has pretty much said this is one that we can pretty much bank on will be ready. So, because
Yeah, that has to be.
everything's already there, pretty much. We're not having to order new, what we've been calling guts, which is all the electrical components and all that. All that's there already. So, but I will be taking some pictures today, and I'll share them with you. So,
Sounds
it's
good.
exciting because that's
Yeah.
the only open concept that we have left, and it will be a memory here when the school
Yeah.
season starts. So,
Very good. Thank you.
yes.
So that brings us to Section 11, Attorney's Business,
No report this morning.
and Section 17, Superintendent's Business. 12.1 is always out-of-state student trip requests, but 12.2 is the excitement.
Thank you, Madam Chair and School Board. I have a few different topics that I'd like to discuss, and I'd like Dr. Hale to come up for a second if he would. On the 25th of this month, we do have our educational support job fair, and Dr. Hale gives some other information, but what I would like to say is I'm very appreciative of Dr. Hale and the HR team As you know, vacancies are a real thing in Okaloosa as well as really across the nation. And so one thing I'm proud of is his team has done a great job of being very active, whether it's job fairs, whether it's going out to colleges, whether it's using social media, whether it's using billboards. So there's so much that we're doing now that we didn't do before, and that's due to Dr. Hale's leadership, so I just appreciate that. Dr. Hale?
Yes, sir. Thank you. On July 25th, we'll be hosting an Ed Support, specifically job fair, right here in this room. As you know, we are constantly looking for support staff in the areas of transportation, custodial, specifically ESE paraprofessionals this year. We're very aggressive in looking for those types of individuals right now. And so that opportunity will be available. We will have another board meeting between now and the 25th, but I didn't want to not take this opportunity a couple weeks out to go ahead and give a heads up so that maybe you guys could spread the word on your social media. Our Human Resources Department and the school district has already begun spreading the word through our social media as well. I spoke to Ms. Card this morning. We're going to start a little media campaign as well to get some people in here so that we can start recruiting and hiring for these very, very critical positions. You know, everyone is important in this district, and nothing can happen in the schools without the support staff. And so we're really, really interested in getting not just the vacancies filled, but the vacancies filled with the best, and that's the Okaloosa standard. So July 25th, right here in this room, spread the word. Parapros, transportation assistants, media assistants, cafeteria monitors, cleaners, all the different things. Paraprofessionals, both ESC and regular paraprofessionals. We're looking for any type of support. So I do appreciate the opportunity to say something about that this morning.
And I can go ahead and say it now. I was going to do it my time to talk, but I think we're about a month out from school, and I know that we had the new teacher orientation July 29th, I believe. So like an update in maybe the next board meeting where we are as far as individuals we need to hire. I
Sure.
keep seeing these employment separations, and I start counting how many instructional and non-instructional, and I wish we could stop taking those employment separations at this point. But just maybe an update. You did a very nice job last year keeping
Absolutely.
us posted on
I'm happy
where
to
we
give you
were.
any type of specifics that you'd like, and I'll be prepared to give you even data and numbers at the next board meeting. But just in a general sense, I can give you a
should've
little
known
bit
you
of that
already had
information
it.
now. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. We are looking for teachers across all levels, elementary, middle school, and secondary. We do have a specific need also with our itinerants and with our ESE programs, specific speech pathologists, autistic teachers, EH teachers, et cetera. Always looking for those. But we are not filled in any place yet, whether it be north, central, or south, elementary, middle, or high. Any of the various subject areas, we are interested in talking to any and all. And I know that our girls over there in HR are working very, very hard, staying late to get the transcripts in and the postings done. And so there's hiring. It's been a constant sea of activity in there for the last month or so. I think you probably have noticed on the board report that the primary emphasis for the principals in the first part of the summer has been through the transfers. And so now we're getting into the new hire season, and so we'll start seeing those numbers increasing as the board meetings progress throughout the summer. But there is no shortage of vacancies right now. We are looking to find good people, and so spread the word any way you can. And like I said, I'll have some specific numbers, and I could sit here and count them right now in front of you,
Oh,
but
no,
that
no,
might be
please
awkward.
don't.
So, but I will definitely be prepared with those numbers next board meeting.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And Ms. Gardner, and I appreciate that question. And one of the things, you know, at our leadership huddle, one of the things we talked about is public education has changed. And one of those areas, even when you go back to the latest superintendent school board annual meeting in June, is vacancies. And so hiring, whether it be teachers, whether it be bus drivers, whether it be front office staff, so that's different nowadays. So now there's a norm going into school years, and even, unfortunately, even many months into school years with certain vacancies. So that's a challenge that we have in front of us. So I appreciate, again, going back to what we said, Dr. Hale's group being very proactive and trying to find not only people to fill these positions, but the best to fill these positions. But it's also a testament to our current employees and staff. When you have these vacancies, well, what does that mean? That means someone else is having to step up and go above and beyond. And I know that can be frustrating at times, but just really appreciate our faculty, our staff, our administrators, our district staff who really work to help fill these vacancies and then also just step in when the vacancies are there. So there's just a lot that goes on behind the scenes.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hale. And Superintendent, you might have some other business to share with us.
I got one more before something that I'm very proud to share, but I'm also very proud to share this. And either Ms. Lamb or Ms. Schroeder, one of you, if you would come forward. We have the CAC folks with us today, the Children's Advocacy Center, and I think that they would like to give a little bit of an update, which we appreciate.
So I'd like to introduce Julie Porterfield and Dinesh Jones. They come to us from the Children's Advocacy Center. We have a beautiful collaboration with them. Unfortunately, the work that they have to do is hard. I wish they didn't have to do the work that they do, but they do it with grace. They do it with just a support of our kids, our most vulnerable kids. And so I asked them today, since their agreement with us and the Child Safety Matters is on the agenda today, I asked them if they would just come and share just briefly some of the work that they do with our students in general and helping us with collaboration with all of the other child welfare agencies in our county.
Good morning.
Morning.
See a lot
Morning.
of familiar faces up here. It's really exciting for us to formalize our partnership with Child Safety Matters. In 2017, we applied for an Impact 100 grant to expand our mission from intervention to include prevention, because we do that work every day after something has happened, and we really wanted to figure out what we could do to stop abuse and or identify children who have been being abused but didn't know who to go see. And so I think we started working with Terry back in 2017, and so since 2017 to today, we are in all the elementary schools in Okaloosa County and also in Walton County. But the good news is we always were wondering if we're coming back, and so to formalize this is really, really important to us, and our partnership is important to you all too. And it's really the people who are community outreach advocates. They go out into the schools and teach these little people to protect themselves. And I think we all can agree that we live in a world where parents no longer can do that as much as we want to, and especially these days it's even more with social media and internet safety and just being aware of your surroundings for young people. So I want Danae to share a little bit about what she does.
Hi, I'm Denasia Jones, and I have the privilege of being a community outreach advocate, going out into the schools, 25 of them, to teach child safety matters. And a brief overview of what that looks like. It's unfortunate, first off, that we have to even have child abuse prevention education, but I take pride in empowering the students to give them information that they need, like they were saying, to protect themselves. We spent a lot of time going over different red flags, and some of those red flags could be if someone is hitting them, if someone is saying very mean, very hurtful things over and over, if someone is even doing something to the point of asking them to keep unsafe secrets, those sorts of things. And I love this program because it's child friendly, it's personable, it opens up the door to have conversations that otherwise probably wouldn't be had. And I love being able to provide that safe space for students to be able to talk about things like abuse and bullying and cyberbullying and online safety. It's a lot out there for them to battle. And we also help them to identify safe adults, whether that's inside the home or a lot of times outside the home as well. A lot of times teachers and coaches and SRDs and all of those things, all of those people are safe adults for them. And making sure that they know that they can use their voice to speak up for themselves if these different things that we talk about have happened to them, if they ever do happen to them, and we're able to have that person-to-person conversation, that physical contact. And unfortunately, sometimes that does lead to disclosures that come forward. I do have some papers here about the past couple of years, the work that we've done, the number of kids that we've seen, the number of lessons that we have presented, and the number of disclosures for the past couple of years, if you want to pass those. And so it looks as if disclosures of abuse come from the kids just about every other day in the schools, about every 10 lessons or so. Like last year, for example, we did 818 lessons. We saw over 12,000 kids, and we had 35 disclosures. So that means that they felt safe enough to come forward to tell us that these different abuses were happening in their home. And had we not been able to be there to see them face to face, first of all, a lot of times they wouldn't know that this abuse is happening because they feel that it's only strangers that do these things. But a lot of times, 90% of the time, when a child is being abused, it's by someone that they know. And so it's hard to kind of see the forest for the trees because they're expecting it from somewhere else. But being able to put names to all of these things and to empower them that they can use their voice to speak up for themselves, and that most importantly, their safety is important, and that it's an adult's job to keep them safe. Yeah. Any questions about anything at all?
I would just say it's, looking at our community as a whole, it's always refreshing to know that our community is involved in our schools and making an impact. And I know y'all make a huge impact in our schools, and we thank you for that. So.
Thank you.
And
it
I
looks
just want
like-
to, go ahead, ma'am.
I was just going to say, the numbers here have doubled from 2021, 22 to 22, 23, both in the number of lessons and the number of students seen. So we thank you for that, doubling your efforts,
Yes.
literally.
Thank you so much.
And I was going to say, Dr. Kelly and board, this is an example of maybe things that happen behind the scenes that folks don't necessarily know. But when we talk about student safety, we always talk about layers, and we have so many different layers. We just spoke earlier about our mental health counselors, CDAC, our social workers, but now we have our outside agency partners as well, and it's something that we appreciate. And we always talk about, student safety is paramount, first and foremost, and it's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to do it. So it's just appreciative to have the outside agencies working with us to keep our students safe, and just appreciate the work that you do. And thank you also, Ms. Schroeder.
And I know you mentioned an Impact 100 grant.
Yes.
But for the benefit of the public, how are you funded, your organization? You are a nonprofit, right?
Yes, we are. We're it's really blended funding. We have state funding. We do a great amount of fundraising. We're part of United Way, so the goal is, like you all, making sure you have the funds to do the work that you need to do. And again, this is really important to our board of directors to do prevention in the schools, and to, for me, it's always been identifying kids who are in abusive situations but didn't know how to find someone to help them. So we're just very grateful for this partnership and glad to make it formal. So thank you, Superintendent Chambers. The other thing I want to mention briefly, Terry had reached out to me earlier this year about doing a child welfare collaboration meeting, which I'm glad she did. So we gathered law enforcement, guardian ad litem, school resources officer, just to talk about the process when there is an investigation going on in the schools, to make sure everybody is on the same page. Because again, that can be pretty yielding for a kid who's in school, and for the teachers and the administrators to manage that as well. So again, we're happy to partnership with that as well. So thank you, Terry.
If you ever get a chance, swing by and see their renovated building. They had a little bit of a crisis.
Yeah,
a
huge.
lot
Yeah.
of crisis,
Huge crisis.
last year, and they completely remodeled. So if you get a chance, swing by over there and look. It's a beautiful facility. It's very welcoming to our children. And you could even see some of the behind the scenes of what our kids go through when they actually show up at the center. So they're handled very well and very in a very caring manner. So if you have a chance.
Terry, thank you for everything. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Mr. Chambers, I wonder if the public really realizes how much the school provides for our students outside of the instruction of reading and math. We've said here today, talked about our mental health counselors, or our dental program, the program that was just presented, but everything we do beyond the teaching of reading, writing, the 3 R's and beyond. It's very impressive.
No, absolutely, because we didn't even mention our guidance counselors who do a
we
great
did,
job.
and this is just a
The youth
drop
mental
in.
health first aid training that we do as well. So there's a lot.
And
So
you-
important before we even begin instruction with our students. This has to be in
Yes.
place.
Exactly. And you mentioned the layers of support that we have in our school district. And as they were speaking, it reminded me that our Hope Squad lessons actually have some of the layers that you mentioned in Discovery. For example, they talk about protective self-barriers. They talk about good secrets versus bad secrets. And of course, these are all age and developmentally appropriate for our students. So I'm very grateful that we are hitting on not just physical safety, but mental safety and all the areas of safety for our students that we can think of in our school district.
Thank you. And now I'd like, as we pull a PowerPoint up, as you know, every single year at this point in time, state assessment results come out. And one of the things I want to say before we get into this presentation is you go back to last school year. Last school year was still a challenging school year. And you look at, we already talked about the vacancies that were there. Every school, they felt it. You look at transportation. Transportation did a great job of doubling up routes. We know that some of our school buses were late because, again, we had vacancies in transportation. I say all that to say it takes everybody working together to get our kids to school on time. It takes everybody together to educate our students as well. But then you look at, we battled student absences last year. We looked at new standards, new assessment, new textbook, a lot of new teachers. And as you remember, we've talked about at one point in time last year, we hired 160 new teachers. 147 of them didn't go to school to be a teacher. They had a degree in something else. And that's becoming more the norm across the state of Florida and across the nation. So it's about finding folks, changing the way that you do professional development to meet the needs of our more veteran teachers or those who went to school to be a teacher versus maybe those who did not. And Mrs. Lightbourne and her group have done a great job really differentiating that professional development. It'll continue into this school year. And also our school principals have done a great job supporting their new teachers as well as supporting teachers and staff in general. So challenging school year. But one of the things, just like we've talked to our administrators, I think right now for at least the foreseeable future, that's kind of the norm. And we've talked a lot about mindset in our school district and what we can control. And one of the things that we control was when the students are in the seats, we do the best of our ability to educate them. I do want to share just a little bit on the state rankings. If you go back to the year 2021, when you look at the tested grade levels in ELA and in math and in science and in social studies, and that also encompasses our end of course exams, when you take all of that and you put it together, as well as all the other 66 districts taking that and putting it together, you get a state ranking. And back in 2021, Okaloosa Schools was 8th in the state. Back in 2022, Okaloosa Schools was 7th in the state. In this most recent school year, Okaloosa Schools is 5th in the state.
Woohoo!
Yes, ma'am. So we have 67 school districts in the state of Florida. Okaloosa Schools this year, 5th in the state. And I say all that to say it's not just about a state ranking. It's about especially making sure the kids are prepared for either college, the military, or the workforce. But we do want to do a good job of educating our students. And earlier, one of the things I said was new assessment, new standards, new textbooks. So there was a lot of change last year as well. And these new standards, this new assessment, some of the things that you and I went to school to do, say in 9th grade, is now filtered its way to 6th grade. Things that were in 6th grade are now in 4th grades in terms of the level of complexity. So these are rigorous standards, and our students are meeting it, but our teachers and staff and principals are doing a great job of preparing our students for these assessments. And I do also want to say thank you to Mrs. Lightbourne and her group for the work that they're doing in terms of professional development, in terms of getting information out there on the standards, because it is a lot. One of the things that we did look at is we looked at what are some of the areas where we can do even better. And I won't hit them all because Mrs. Lightbourne will touch on them, but 3rd grade is an area that we need to focus on even more. It's definitely a focus already, but Ms. Lightbourne and her group are not just focusing on 3rd grade, they're going to focus and continue to focus on K2. I think that's important. At the high school level, There's certain courses, which you'll see here in a second, where we want to do even better, such as biology, but you'll see a couple others as well. But then there's also a number of areas to celebrate where we did extremely well. And with that being the case, and I might chime in, Ms. Lightbourne, as we go through this, I might not, but I might. But if you would kind of take us through how we did this year with our state assessments.
Okay, so starting with ELA, what we did is we put together our proficiency versus the state's proficiency. So if you look at 3 through 10, we stayed above the state in every grade level. So third grade, we're up 6 points, fourth, 10, fifth, sixth, and so on, with 10th grade being up 11 points. So we were very, very proud of that. There is not a grade level nor a content area that we are below the state average. We are above the state average in everything.
Okay, can I stop real quick?
Mhm.
On the proficient what is that, last year, 22? So that is the state. The
So you're
percent-
looking at our more detailed data. That's not what,
Oh, okay, okay.
yeah.
All right.
I can work, I
Okay,
can
I'll come
help
back
you
to
with that.
Okay.
Mhm. Any other questions? Okay. In math, if you look at our math overall, so we looked at 3 through 8, and so excited about math. Really looks strong across the board. And look at our 7th grade math. Our 7th grade math was 26 points above the state average. We were third in the state in 7th grade math. Middle school in both ELA and math just did exceptional this year. Very, very proud of their efforts and their outcomes. So that was a big deal, big deal. Our EOCs, again, stayed above the state. And you'll see later on, geometry is an area of focus for us. But even with geometry being an area of focus, we still stayed 12 points above the state, which is one of our biggest gaps. So that was really good. We were very happy with that.
What do you mean an area of focus that we're really?
So I'm gonna show you some areas that we feel like as a curriculum team that we need to focus on and support. And then there's some areas of excellence that we're very, very proud of that we can kind of step back a little bit on. Okay? All right, so when you look at our areas of focus, these are areas of focus. So this is where we're comparing ourselves to the state rankings. So third grade, as Mr. Chambers said, in both reading and math, we fell from our ranking from the year before. So we went from 12th to 20th, and then we went from 15th to 16th in third grade reading and then in math. So we know third grade is a focus, but as Mr. Chambers said, third grade can't do it alone, so it's really a K-3 focus. So we will be looking diligently at that and providing supports to our schools in K-3 specifically, beyond our normal supports. High school geometry went from 5th to 12th in the state, so that's what I was pointing out earlier. We were still 12 points above the state, but we did drop from where we were the year before. And that was our high school geometry. Our middle school, you'll see in a minute, is an area of excellence. So high school geometry is definitely a focus. And yes, we did struggle to get some math teachers this past year, and geometry was one of the areas that we needed teachers in. I have a longtime friend that subbed the whole year, former teacher. Again, we were blessed to have her, but we still had gaps there. High school biology took a big drop, and so did 7th grade civics. Again, no excuses. We know we're going to have to focus on it. We have FJCC site, which is given to us by the state, that has incredible curriculum for civics, and we will be focusing on making sure teachers know how to use it. But those are some areas that
And
we.
Mrs. Lightbourne,
Yes,
just
yes,
a
sir.
quick question. So I understand the need for focus and how important that is. But is it accurate to say that even though those might be some areas that on the face of it appear to be declines, that Okaloosa still ranks in the upper quartile of the state in all of those areas?
Absolutely, absolutely. As we were talking about that this morning, saying some school districts would be very excited to have
Right.
those scores.
Right.
But for us, it is something that we know we need to focus on because we're never settled. We're fifth. We want to be number one.
Right. And so upper quartile meaning that we're better than 75% of the other districts in Florida. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay. Now I wanted to share with you our areas of excellence. So where we jumped, okay? 4th grade math. So 3rd grade, we know we took a dip, but look at our 3rd graders to 4th grade. We went from 18th to 7th in the state. 5th grade, we went from 16th to 10th, and 6th, 18th to 12th. 7th grade, again, just as ecstatic over those scores, 7th to 3rd, and then 8th grade, 9th to 6th. So very, very happy with 4 through 8 math. Really, really phenomenal growth and great rankings there. Even better than the top quartile.
Well, right. In some cases in the top 90%.
Yes, sir. And then I just had to highlight this. Our middle school algebra and geometries, absolutely phenomenal. Our algebra students in middle school, 91% of them were proficient, and our geometry, 98% of them were proficient. So we're very, very happy with our middle school algebra and geometry. And as you know, we start working on this in the summer with middle school. So currently, right now, actually today for some of the schools is the first day that they'll be working on it, we do a summer bridge program where our 6th grade students who are coming in, who are skipping 6th grade math because they're level 4s and 5s and going straight into 7th grade math, well, they're still going to be missing some standards, some foundational math skills. So we do a summer bridge program for those students during the summer. It's a 2-week program to make sure that those foundational skills that they're missing in 6th grade math are there for them in 7th grade advanced. So then they go from 7th grade advanced. These same students then as 8th graders go into algebra, and then as 9th graders go into geometry. So we work on that as a progression. And as you can see, we're very proud of the proficiencies that turn out from that. Another area of excellence in ELA, 4th grade, we went from 14th to 5th. Great jump. 5th, 9th to 8th, 6th, 10th to 7th, 7th, 12th to 5th, 8th, 9th to 6th, and 10th, 9th to 4th. So again, very, very happy. So we are focusing on 9th grade ELA because we know that was an area of need. Again, a lot of the standards changed drastically from middle school to high school, so we feel like that dip occurred, and that's something we'll need to work on. But then when you look at 10th grade, they went from 9th to 4th. So we make up once we get them where we need them.
And if you remember this time last year, ELA is an area that we said was a focus just overall. And then, like I said a few moments ago, the ELA standards have changed. And when you look at what kids are expected to do with certain skills now at the grade level, whereas we may have just had to identify a theme, now these students analyze a theme. Where was it within the paragraph? It's so much more complex. So to see where we were the previous year to where we are this year, I'm very proud of that, because again, these are rigorous passages that these kids are answering, that the teachers are preparing them to be to interact with. It's not an easy task.
And it's all computerized now, which is new for our students. So that's another layer that adds into the assessment part that's new. So very proud of the growth of our students. Another area of excellence was 8th grade science went from 5th to 3rd in the state. So very proud of that. We will be focusing on biology. We know that dropped, but very, very happy with 8th grade science. So we hope that that will give a good foundation going into biology. So once again, you go back to where are we as a whole? We are 5th. This shows you in each of the areas, in each grade level, where we ranked. And that puts us total points at 5th.
And Ms. Lightborn, just for my interest and maybe even the public's interest, this material that we're looking at, is this available on the FDOE website, or is it available on the school district's website, or might it be in the future?
So this will be available on our website, and this is the same data that we pull every year. So you have the ability to go to the FDOE website to see all the scores of all the districts.
Right.
And what we do is compile that information, see where everybody ranks, put it on one spreadsheet comprehensively, and then the data is not from Okaloosa data, it's data that comes from the state that we compile.
There you go. And I suspect that the media may have an interest in looking at that data, so that's another reason I asked the question. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. And do want to congratulate Walton, as you can see, number 2 in the state, Santa Rosa number 6 in the state. So the Panhandle doing a great job educating students.
And I might add, we accomplished all of this during a climate in education where we didn't get certified teachers, and that number that Dr. Hale shared with us. We had people who had a degree not in education who, by professional development and by hand-holding by principals and other administrators on the campuses, were able to pull this off, even in a climate that we're in the world of education today. So extra level of kudos.
And also, the 3rd graders, they started school in COVID, and
Yes,
some of
ma'am.
them weren't even in school. The parents kept them home, and so when you see how that's just phenomenal, that kind of growth. Because, isn't that true that many of them didn't even start school,
Yes.
regular, like pre-K and all that?
Correct.
When we're
Well, the
back in-
pre-Ks were shut down.
Yeah, that's
during-
right.
yeah.
So, and
Mhm.
then, so they missed, so making that quick, that's moving fast, so very proud.
We are very, very proud of where we are, but we're never settled
Satisfied.
unless we're number 1.
Right.
So let me just share just a few efforts that we're going to be making targeted. So we start our school performance plan process in February. We have very strategic meetings with teachers and coaches and principals, and we drill down to what our goals for this year will be. We continue to have meetings in the summer for folks that need support in creating their school performance plans. The superintendent has had and continues to have one-on-one meetings with each of our principals to talk about their data and to talk about what their plans are for next year. So if they have soft spots, of course, we're talking here overall, that our principals are drilling down, as we are, into their data down to the classroom. Summer meetings with curriculum. So we are also meeting with, so Mr. Chambers is meeting with principals and we're meeting with principals, drilling into their curriculum, looking at what can we do to patch some of the holes that they have with personnel. We talk a lot about, and Mr. Chambers does as well, sometimes at the secondary level, we put our teachers, our really strong teachers, in our highest level courses because, of course, you have to have that content knowledge. But those teachers also need to maybe be teaching some of our algebra and geometry or regular ELA as well to support those students. We talk a lot about subgroups. We have SS subgroups that we look at, and we drill down all the way to the subgroup level. Our professional learning model is strong. So I don't know if you all know this, the state has changed the terminology from professional development to professional learning. So we're all so when we won't say PD anymore, we'll be saying PL. Just wanted everybody to get the new lingo. So it's been a little hard for all of us, but we have shifted. So we feel like our model is strong. We will start on August 8th. I hope that you guys get a chance to visit. We'll give you all of those schedules. We are all over the county actually presenting on that day. Our teachers will have the opportunity to go to different trainings based on their content area and their grade levels. And then we have strategic coach support, so we're blessed because of ESSER.
And go back one.
Okay.
And on the professional learning model, one of the things I'm proud of is Ms. Lightbourne and her group, where historically we started professional development in the September timeframe, and they've pushed pause on that, and our instructional coaches will just be in classrooms with teachers, with new teachers side by side. So very appreciative of that change. And then in the October-ish timeframe is when we'll start the professional development beyond August 8th. So I appreciate that tweak to the model.
Absolutely. We learned this past year, we had lots of folks, as you know, that were career changers. We had boat captains, we had bus drivers, we had hairdressers that came in and were willing, and we're blessed to have them. We're so thankful to have them, but they, you know, when you get in and you start staring down 150 kids all day, or however many, 30 kids in an elementary, it becomes a little bit overwhelming just to get through the day. So our coach support there is critical to support those folks moving forward. As we talked about earlier, we talked about K-3 support specifically, so we will really be looking at K-3 and just what we need to do there to support that, to have that growth so that third grade blossoms. And we know that'll take a little bit of time because it's going to take a couple years to grow those students. But hopefully our second grade, our K-2 now is in a better place, but we'll be working on that. We've added, during our plan of care tutoring, we struggled a lot to get people to come before or after school. Since COVID, really nobody wants to stay beyond the day. So a lot of our students didn't want to stay. We struggled to get teachers to stay. We were short-staffed. Everybody's tired. So we punted this year, and we used during the day tutoring, and it's gone very, very well. So we've had folks come in, some of them substitutes, some of them retired teachers. Our teachers have given up their planning periods for compensation to do tutoring during that time, and that has worked really well. It's added another layer, kind of like Title I or remediation services. We've been able to add more doing tutoring during the day. So we really feel like that's a big, big help. And then Dr. Seals has been instrumental in adding community-based tutoring opportunities as well.
So during the day, do these individuals push into the room, or how does that work?
It depends on the we allow the school to have a model. We train the folks that are going to do it. We have some very scripted materials that we use, and some schools have it push in because they have groups going on during that time in the room, and others have them pull out and work with a group of students, again, similar to title or remediation services.
You're so correct. It's very difficult before school and after school. Everybody is tired at that time, and getting students to your rights. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's we think that's been one of the things that's helped quite a bit.
Oh, I would just concur 1,000%. At any time we can increase instructional time, as you're doing with that, the research shows that makes a huge difference. Now, I am curious though about outside providers. Do we have any private business type outside providers like we used to have back in the day? When I was doing these kinds of things, we had I think it was Sylvan and those kinds of groups, and I'm wondering if that's still available, or if we're accessing those, or.
So no, the folks that come in during the day register in our district as substitutes if they're not current employees. And those folks then can come in as our own, because then they're substitutes. We can monitor them. We have control over, again, their credentials, et cetera.
So then we're not really using any outside private providers as we did back in the day with Sylvan, and we even, I think, provided transportation for those students to access those services.
Correct, not during the day, no.
No, I meant after school.
No,
Do they have
after
any
school,
after
now,
school?
we do have some parents that potentially, I think Sylvan is still around, and parents could potentially do that, but we have community-based tutoring available in both the north end and the south end of the county, and that's free. All of our school-based tutoring is free. That's before and after school. We still have it. We just don't have the folks that want to come before and after school as much. So we still have both of those opportunities plus during the day opportunities.
Well, I remember it was very difficult to manage, particularly the after-school private providers. But and I felt like I had great success with that. And there was also a measurement tool that they used to show the progress that students were making in those after-school programs. So I just say that if you guys can locate those and find a way that it may provide additional opportunities for kids, and it may have the other side effect of helping to improve and bolster our performance. And I just say this, given this performance level, it's going to be, you're going to have to work really hard just to maintain it, which is a good thing.
It's true. That's true. It's true. And then also in curriculum, we do just quarterly school visits. So Mr. Palmer and I and some of our specialists go out to the schools and do a half day to a whole day visit. We go into classrooms, we see what instruction looks like. We sit down and we talk about instruction, we talk about soft spots of that school, how can we help and support it. So those are the highlights of our year, actually getting to go in and see our students and our teachers doing their thing. And then we do district data chats, which that's what we're in the process of now. We do those mid-year, so when we're looking at that PM2 data, so that we can help see where are our soft spots mid-year, so that we're trying to make sure that that's still not a soft spot at the end of the year. And then we do them at the end of the year for the summer, so that we're talking about what are your plans to support that for the following year. We also highlight our positives at that same time and celebrate together with the principals. We are planning to provide targeted school support if we see a school in need that we would like to support even more. Then we're looking at targeted school supports, and we're looking at targeted grade level supports. And as I said earlier, we're drilling down to the subgroup level. So if we have a school that has a subgroup that is underperforming, so then that is something that we're looking at. How do we support specifically that subgroup?
So I have a question regarding the state progressive testing, and of course this was our first year doing it this past year. Is there any data that has come out that has shown, the benefits of doing this, or is this still something a work in progress since this was the first year?
So I believe it's a work in progress. We maintained iReady as well, which gave us a lot more detailed information, but the progress monitoring assessment from the state gave us some very general information about grade levels in schools and drilled down to the teacher. But when you use iReady, it drills down to the student and gives you a prescription. So we continue to use that to provide the prescription to the students as needed. So I think it's a work in progress. I do.
Right.
And I would add on, I think as the state continues to look at the assessment data in terms of what they provide, kind of like what Mrs. Lightbourne was just talking about, what they provide for PM1 and PM2, as it gets more specific, like it does for things like iReady or Read 180, as it gets more specific, that's when I think it's going to become even more of a game changer. They provided us some good information this year, but as they hone in on it, I think it can be even better.
Right. They'll be producing cut scores over the summer, and hopefully we'll get those by probably after the school year starts. But that'll give us some information. We'll be able to then look at a target. Right now, we really didn't have much of a target going into this year. So I just like to say I'm just extremely proud of our schools and our teachers and our students and what they were able to do. Typically in a year like this with new standards, new tests, new textbooks, you see a drop and almost every grade level improved, which is phenomenal. So I'm very, very proud of the hard work that all of our folks put into that. Took a team.
And congratulations are in order, and I'm especially appreciative of all this hard work. I know my colleagues are as well. because this helps students. And we understand, and sometimes we don't talk about it very much, but the state has established consequences for students that might not perform well on these assessments. And with this kind of effort, with this kind of work, our students, by far the vast majority of them, will not have to bear those consequences.
Correct.
And so thank you for that.
You're welcome.
What about grading? Do we know from the state what's happening with grading?
So they have to create the cut scores first. So once they create those cut scores, which is, I think in October is when they're supposed to have all the data and be able to have those cut scores in. Then they talk about a school grade potentially coming out November and December. The school grade will have no bearing on any kind of sanctions or anything for any school district. It's very hard to understand. We cannot even predict what the school grade is because there's no learning gains. Because it's a new assessment, so there won't be learning gains. There's no writing. The writing component isn't in there. They're going to be counting third grade individually as well as a 3, 4, 5 proficiency. So third grade will count twice, which has never been done. So there's lots of changes that will be made, and so we can't predict because there's no real formula yet. We'll have to get that, but we don't expect to see that before November timeframe. But based on what we looked at, the 21 categories, we come out 5th in the state. Can't imagine that that's a bad thing.
Is there
It's a great
funding
thing.
tied into the grade this year? I mean, is legislation, has that been determined? Any funding, like, is there
A
money,
plus
I guess,
you're talking
funds
about?
for the A, right?
I'm
We'd
not-
we'd have to
been-
look into that. We'd have to look into that.
Okay. Maybe that's-
And I will say to
Yeah.
the point on the learning gains, like Mrs. Lightbourne was talking about, in the Superintendent's Association, as well as I know the School Board Association, when learning gains are not in the equation, it absolutely puts Title I schools and others at a huge disadvantage. And we've always talked about in education, you want the kids to have a year's worth of growth.
Absolutely.
And in many times that those students have it, but to not have the learning gains piece in there can be very challenging, I would say, for Title I schools and others. However, we're all in the same playing field in terms of the other 66 districts. But again, I would just like to say, as it pertains to this data and what we just went over today, just want to thank our students first and foremost and their families, our teachers and staff who do a great job, and our principals. And I will say public education is changing. And to be able to work with students, to work with the ever-changing things that come our way, and to still continue to grow is something that I'm extremely proud of. And again, I also would extend my being proud to Ms. Lightbourne and her group. There's a lot that they have to do with maybe not as big a staff, and I do appreciate that.
Like I said before, I'm glad you're staying.
Thank you.
And I would just also comment, if I can, to the superintendent and Ms. Lightbourne, but from the get-go, it wasn't about where we stood on the paper, is what you said about where we were going to go to make those gains and to, address where we needed to improve. So saying that from the get-go tells me, and it also tells the public, like, hey, we're not resting on our laurels. We love being number 5, but we agree number 1 is the goal. So I appreciate the fact that we're already trying to drill in on how we can improve those scores, improve the proficiency and all moving forward. So, but to come out of the gate saying that, I think that says a lot for our school district that, hey, yeah, we're number 5, but we're not happy with that. We are, but we're going to shoot for number 1. So
Absolutely.
And I'll just wrap up by saying, several of us at this podium have been in some of those seats, and we've seen some of those iterations of tests. And every time we have a new generation of tests, what Sheila and her department are living through right now, the back end of that is there are other things coming down as far as refinements of that, like we've just hinted at, the grades that will be affected, not just for individual students, but for schools as well. So I think the message to the public is, number 1, look how well this school district did with the efforts of everyone on the ground, all the boots on the ground, the teachers, the support staff, the parents' support at home, certainly the specialists, and everybody the coaches, everybody else whose hands have touched this process. So against the backdrop of the chaos and uncertainty in the climate of education today, I think that just really helps set us apart, and I think it goes to the attitude of excellence in this district. So just thank you all for that.
Thank you.
So that brings us to section 13, board members' announcements and requests for information. And I think today I'll start with Ms. Evanchik.
Okay. All right, so believe it or not, we're talking about school supplies already.
I know.
Yep, and so want to announce a couple of things. First of all, I'm really proud, former student of mine who's now an NFL player, Richie Grant, is with the Atlanta Falcons. He's sponsoring a school supply giveaway this Saturday for elementary students, but it will be in the Choctaw High School parking lot from noon to 5. So I'm very proud of Richie coming back and doing that. So plus looking forward to seeing him. Also, the Okaloosa Public Schools Foundation, in cooperation with United Way of the Emerald Coast, we're doing Stuff the Bus that we've done for several years. It's going to be on July 29th from 8 to 4 at the Fort Walton Beach, Crestview, and Niceville Walmart locations. Look for our big new buses out there. Last year, over $11,000 worth of school supplies were collected. It'll be tax-free weekend, so we'll be taking advantage of that. And there's a list of the most needed supplies on our school district website and on our school district Facebook page. And also there's an opportunity on the website, if you just don't want to go out there and do shopping, you can make a donation that will be used to get these school supplies. So starting back, getting those seems early, but got to get ready, right? So the next item is a more serious, somber dedication I need to make today. Sadly, we've lost another former Okaloosa County School District longtime employee, and I'm speaking of Mrs. Jenny Hamilton. This one is personal to me because she was a teacher of mine, and I worked with her for many years. I also taught both her children and 2 of her grandchildren. She was what we called then a business education teacher at Choctaw High School from 1968 until she retired in 2002. She started out teaching typing and shorthand. And some people probably listening don't even know what shorthand is.
No, I was in both of those
I
classes.
think
Yeah.
I still remember some of those.
With Miss Jenny.
Yes, right. I'm sure you'll have some comments too. Anyway, at that time, she sponsored the cheerleaders, which she did for decades. She ultimately became the school's student activities director, where she made an indelible mark on the school, countless students, and her colleagues. Many of the rituals and traditions associated with the school, she either started or enhanced while she was there. She was a petite woman in stature, but she had a giant personality. She was passionate about giving students her best and equally passionate about all things Choctawhatchee High School. She believed in emphasizing excellence in everything, and she set expectations high for students and all those around her. She would absolutely call you out if you wore any color than green on a Friday into Choctawhatchee High School. I mean, call you out. She had a great sense of humor and actually was quite a prankster herself. She was raised in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and she was actually very proud of her nickname, Still Magnolia. Tomorrow, her family and friends will celebrate her life well lived. Although her passing from natural causes last Thursday left many of us shocked and saddened, I believe in her passing, she was once again reminding all of us to live passionately, to love deeply, and to give generously to others. Thank you, Ms. Hamilton. You're one of a kind. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Evanchik. Ms. Gardner?
Okay, right after me.
Yeah, you get that. I'm sorry.
Beautiful tribute. I've
Thank you.
known the Hamiltons for years and years also. Ross Hamilton, her husband. I remember taking his class, the 8 o'clock class at it was OWCC at the time, and I learned quickly not to take 8 o'clock classes. But both of them are. I read some of the comments that were made, and often it would say that she was the face of Choctawhatchee, and she truly was. And she was a true example of a leader dedicated to all students there, and wonderful person. So nice job there. Thank you for mentioning the United Way. There's a lot of organizations that are doing the back to school, the donations.
Yep.
And I know that the schools also have on their websites the school supply list often, and just encourage anyone who would like to go and donate something, whether it's a pack of pencils or a couple of dollars. It's greatly appreciated. I'm trying to get my phone now with my notes. Mr. Chambers, thank you for inviting us to the admin huddle. That was very impressive. I mean, I just sat there in awe, and into your staff that put all of that together. By far, that would be hard to beat right there. And but you also shared a list of the community business partners, different organizations that donated to that event. And I don't know, you may have already done this, but somewhere display that list. It was maybe 2 pages, if I'm not mistaken. But to see, I mean, I know all of the admins that were sitting there were very appreciative. I mean, as soon as you gave them their bags, they were in it and they had it spread. And just from the time they walked in, the breakfast, the snacks, the lunch. I was so tempted to come back for lunch, but I didn't. I was trying to beat some traffic. But nice job to you and to the staff, and to also our community and our business partners that just go above and beyond. I'd like to thank them. I think that's all for now.
Thank you, Ms. Gardner. Mr. Bryant.
Thank you. And Ms. Vanchek, I have to say that was a very moving tribute. And I've read a lot on social media here about how much she made an impact.
Yeah,
And,
amazing.
I would have been honored to be in her class if I was living in
You
this
would,
area.
yeah, thank you.
And I did take typing, and I did take typing on a manual
Did you take
typewriter.
shorthand?
We did not have to take shorthand, but I always said that I didn't understand why I had to take a full year of typing, but I will tell you that typing probably has benefited me the most from a high school experience because of how much we use it every day.
And that manual thing.
Oh, yeah, yep. And the reason why I have glasses today is because you had to look down at the keyboard. You weren't allowed to look at the big one, and I couldn't even see the big one on the board out there. So.
Darn, if you made a mistake, it's like the white out and the
I was proud. I could do 60 words a minute on a manual, so I was pretty proud
good.
of that. So, but just one quick announcement. So we've announced all of the great community things that we're doing to do Stuff the Bus, to get school supplies to all of our students. But I would like to say that the Crestview Rotary Club is going to do something. We're doing something a little different this year, but this is going to be limited just to the north end. But we're going to do copy paper for teachers.
Oh, good.
Good idea.
So
That's
our
great.
goal is to do, this is our first year doing it, but we're going to do try to get 50 cases of copy paper for teachers. So we know how valuable copy paper is, and even colored copy paper. So I just wanted to say we'll take whatever you can get. But Mike Carroll up at Hub City Smokehouse is doing an event actually it's going on now until the beginning of school, the first day of school, but it's called Paper for Pork. So if you bring a ream of paper to Hub City Smokehouse anytime between now and the beginning of school, you will get a free pork sandwich.
Oh, yeah.
So,
That's a good trade.
yep,
That's a
and
great
if you
idea.
are interested in donating to this cause, you can contact me or any Crestview Rotarian, and we will make sure to get the paper delivered to the schools. But we're going to do all 12 schools on the north end, and this is just something to try. This is new for us, but we tried to figure out something because we always do a back-to-school drive for the students, but because everybody is doing something for the students, and there's a ton of school supplies that come in, we thought why don't we do something for the teachers? And we drilled it down to the copy paper, so that's what we're going to focus on this year.
That's wonderful.
And so, but if you're up in the Crestview area and you like good barbecue, go see Mike Carroll. Bring a ream of paper, you get a free pork sandwich. And that's it.
Sounds good.
Great.
And we do appreciate Mike Carroll. He does so much for the communities, all of the communities, not just Crestview. So he's a very dynamic and important member of this community. Dr. White.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly, and Ms. Van Check, thank you for your tribute to Mrs. Hamilton. She was a teacher of mine and of Connie too, but fortunately we weren't in the same class
Ooh,
together.
yeah.
But she was a wonderful teacher and just a quality person that I know that all of Choctawhatchee and this community will miss because she did so many things in the community as well. I mean, she was a big supporter of Change for Children, and she was very involved in public education and supported all of the efforts that are being made by the teachers and the community and the superintendent and the school board. I recognized her number on my phone when the calls would come in, and she was very, very concerned about our students and the future of our schools. And so with great sympathy, I express my condolences to her family and to Mr. Hamilton and all of the children and grandchildren and the total family. I know the service will be tomorrow, and I think it starts at 10, and there's a wealth of information on social media about that, and many wonderful comments and tributes from former students and colleagues, as Connie and I were also colleagues of Jenny at Choctaw. But anyway, sad times for Choctawhatchee High School. Thank you.
And I just have to concur. I've heard Miss Jenny's name my whole career, and certainly we were both cheerleader sponsors at the same time. Never played each other's teams, but I think that is part of the rich and vibrant heritage of Okaloosa County, are people like this who dedicate their entire lives, and indeed their families' lives, to the support and the success of the schools that they represent. So she leaves behind that legacy too. So I just have a couple of other announcements in addition to that. I wanted you all to know that the Taylor Haugen Foundation has opened a new location right here in Niceville, which will expand youth sports safety programs and the scholarships, and we all know that they offer their annual scholarships and the trophy to the outstanding scholar athletes here, and we're very proud and appreciative of them for that. And in addition, the current reserved season ticket holders for all Niceville High School football may purchase their 2023 season tickets on July the 12th, 13th, 14th, and 17th from 9 to 1 in the main office. And then after that, remaining season tickets will go on sale to the public on July the 19th. And you know I like the numbers, just for planning purposes. We are only 21 days out till pre-planning for our teachers, and 30 days out until we welcome our students back. And I'll end with that for my comments today.
And Dr. Kelly, if you don't mind, and I knew Ms. Hamilton was going to be brought up today,
Yes.
and I too want to extend my condolences. Dr. White kind of hit it in terms of the Change for Children, and I say that way because not only was she an icon as a teacher and an employee of the school district, but it went beyond that. You know, after retirement, she continued to support our school district in so many different ways. Hundreds of thousands of dollars has come in since the start of Change for Children. But I do want to say I want to bring myself all the way back to prior. And Ms. Hamilton was our cheerleading sponsor. Her daughter.
She's already retired.
I do.
Yes, her daughter, Miss Bowman, was also with her. They worked as a pair. Mr. McGinnis's daughter was one of those cheerleaders, and she helped me right away know how to be the principal at a school that dealt with
That's right.
having a successful cheerleading program, and she kept me on my toes, let me know exactly what we needed to do, and she was right. But just an outstanding educator, an even better person and family person. But we've lost a very good one. And if we had a Okaloosa County Wall of Fame, she definitely would be on there.
Sounds like a plan to me. All right, so that brings us to section 14 tonight. Will be the yellow card version of our public comment, general comments not related to agenda items. And then section 15, public hearing. Tonight, we will have at 6:15, public hearing to address two items. 15.1, public hearing for instructional materials adoption for secondary science and career and technical education, reproductive health and disease education, presented by Tammy Ellis. And 15.2, public hearing for textbook instructional materials adoption, presented by Ryan Gore. And is there anything else for the good of the order from the district staff? No? Jordan? Nothing else? Seeing nothing else, we are adjourned.